Lesbian Detectives. Unsolved cases. She's still missing. Yeah, they haven't found her yet. Well, let's talk about it.
They say he vanished without a trace. Could it be a psychotic break or a tragic accident? Police don't know where the body went. Unsolved murders, body still missing. That's unheard. Where's the witness? Lesbian detectives, what's going on? City on high alert, this out the norm. He did what, the who? Man, that ain't real, these crimes ain't true. Then come uncover these theories with us. We live right now, tuning in is a must.
Lesbian Detectives. Lesbian Detectives. We about to start the show, so get your popcorn ready, let's go. Pay attention to the message. I present to you the Lesbian Detectives.
This is Lesbian Detectives. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And we are here talking about missing and unsolved murders.
We are discussing cases that you have forgotten about or never even heard of.
So sit back, relax, and let's start this podcast. Hey everybody, thank you for returning back to our little podcast. Thank you all for liking us. Also for calling us out. Like, I love a good debate. Like, some people have their theories. I feel like one thing about theories is we all can have different ones.
Right.
But we shouldn't go at each other I don't believe in your theories. No, have a discussion. See what their side of view is. And I love when they I believe in this. I was I didn't think of that. Sometimes when they say things, I'm like, oh my God, where were you doing theories?
Right, exactly.
Sometimes our theories be off the wall, but it's that case that they sit back and man, this is what I believe that happened.
Right.
And that's why I like doing theories. I feel like we all have a point of view and we all should tell people.
The end goal is to find the perpetrator or bring them to justice.
And speaking of that, I think one of the cases that we cover might be solved sooner than later.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys have seen it on the internet or anything. Let me know. I did cover it on our TikTok. I went more in details on it. But if you want us to do an updated episode, let us know. Aisha Degree, I don't know if you guys remember her. We covered her in the beginning of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Way. I think she number 4 or 5 episode.
Yeah.
But it's a lot coming out on her. So please check out our TikTok where I go more into detail on it. Let us know if you want us to do an updated episode on that. We would love to do that for you guys. Now let's get into the episode. Today's case takes place in San Francisco in the 1970s, with a city full of life, filled with color of freedom and revolution. At night, the fall rolled in, clocking the city in a eerie silence, where the LGBT community found solace in the Castro District, bars and cafes. But beneath the vibrant streets, something dark was lurking. A killer who will become a ghost, haunting the very place that people went to feel alive. It all started one cold night in early 1974 when a man met a stranger in one of the district's bars. The stranger was charming and full of warmth, invited the man to a quiet place by the beach. There the stranger, who had a talent of drawing, offered to sketch him. The man, unsuspecting, agreed. What followed was a gruesome and unexpected act. Violence that seemed almost ritualistic. The man was found later, his life brutally taken, but a strange clue was left behind. A sketch of the victim drawn by the killer. This wasn't an incident. The pattern was clear. The killer struck again and again, following the same method, approaching his victims with his charms, sketching them, and then leading them into a secluded spot where he would then take their lives. His attack was swift and brutal, leaving the bodies of his victim discarded, their lives erased in an instant. Though the police had some clues, a description of a young man, likely in his 20s, with artistic skills, the case stalled. No witnesses came forward. Those who survived the attack remained silent, too afraid to speak out. The fear exposed of the danger of being outed in the time where the LGBT community was heavily stigmatized kept them quiet. As the time passed, the killer name was never known. He was a shadow in the city, slipping through the cracks of an investigation that seemed to have no answers. The police thought they had lead, but no solid evidence. The trail went cold. Decades later, the case was reopened and a new sketch was released, hoping to finally unmask the killer, but the Doodler remained elusive. His identity still a mystery. His action still haunt the city. In the years since, the city has changed, but the darkness that once clung to it has never been forgotten. But the fall may have been lifted. But the stories remain an unsolved mystery, a chilling reminder of the violence and silence that once defined its era. This is the case of the Doodler murder. In the summer of 1975, in the city of San Francisco was alive with a quiet energy. The streets was filled with a hum of a day-to-day life, but at night they came alive in another way. The city LGBT community, particularly in the Castro District, had become a heaven, a place where people could live freely, love openly, and express themselves. But within the vibrant world, a shadow begins to creep through the bars, the parks, and the place where people felt the safeness. In the 1975, the Doodler entered the scene, though his name wouldn't come to be known until much later. He wasn't the usual serial killer. Someone who fit the mold of the darkness, deranged monster, hidden in plain sight. The Doodler was different. He was charming, friendly, someone people wouldn't think twice about. He drew people in with his artistic talent. He was an accomplished sketcher artist, known to draw caricatures of people, capturing them with a pencil and a paper before anyone could really understand what was happening. His sketches was a curious blend of innocent and an eerie tension, but beneath the innocent exterior layer, the heart of a monster, one that would strike swiftly and without any mercy. The Doodler, the killer, earned his nickname from the bizarre detail that emerged in interviews with survivors. He would sketch a portrait of his victim before taking them to a secluded spot to commit the horrifying crime. The chilling part, he'll do it as a prelude, an almost casual invitation, an almost casual introduction before turning deadly. It was January 27, 1974, when the first victim arose. Gerald Kavanaugh was found discarded on a lonely stretch of the ocean beach, his body twisted and abandoned as though he was nothing more than trash. That night had been cold, the fog thick, but Gerald's death would be anything but quiet. His death will be the start of a series of brutal killings that will be seeing a shockwave through the Castro and across the San Francisco. Gerald had been a regular at the Sappho Bar, a place where gay men came to escape the world judgment. Gerald was no stranger to the community. He was a middle-aged man known for his kindness and warmth of laughter. But this night would be different. He had met a man, a young stranger who seemed polite enough. They had exchanged pleasantries, and Gerald, never one to shy away from a conversation, scrolled up a chat. This man, the Doodler, was everything that Gerald would have wanted in a companionship that night. Charming, attentive, and friendly. He spoke like someone who belonged, someone who lived in the city long enough to know its rhythm. There was something darker beneath his friendly demeanor, something that Gerald could never have foreseen. After some time, the Doodler invited Gerald to accompany him to the nearby beach. It was a typical spot where men often went for privacy, a place to escape the noisiness of the city. What Gerald didn't know was that the man's invitation would be his last. They walked together along the shore, the crashing waves muffled by the thick fog. And when the Doodler spotted and suggested sketching Gerald's portrait, Gerald never thought to question it. It was innocent enough, a sketch of a moment. But it was the beginning of his end. The last thing Gerald likely saw was the Doodler's sketch pad, the pencil in his hand, then an instant, the sharp flash of a knife. Gerald fought back, but it was hopeless. The Doodler was calculated, precise, drove the blade into Gerald's body over and over and over again, over 20 stabs in total. It was a frenzied attack, one that didn't seem to have any purpose, other than the release of pure violence. When the body was discovered, there was little evidence to go on, no witnesses, just a bloody corpse on the sand, and the Doodler eerie signature, a sketch of Gerald, drawn by the killer's own hand, left behind as if it was a calling card. Months passed, and the fog continued to roll in over San Francisco, as did the Doodler killing. Each time he followed the same ritual, sketching the victim before taking them to a secluded place, and each time he struck, leaving their bodies mutilated and unrecognizable, to erase any trace of their humanity. On June 25th, 1974, Joseph Stevenson, nicknamed Jay, a 27-year-old man, was a popular female impersonator and had been named the summer replacement of Finencio. Finencio was a old-time club, had been around since the early 30s. It had been a hot spot for the military and celebrities, wrote James Smith. But by the 70s, the high tourist attendance and the hands-off rule discouraged the gay crowds, and they largely went elsewhere. Just like Gerald, Joseph had spent the evening at the Castro District, engaged in the same friendly conversation, the same flirtation. The Doodler seemed harmless, a charming man in his early 20s who had a reputation as an artist, a man whose drawing could capture the essence of someone's face. Joseph accepted his offer and followed him to the Golden Gate Park, a place where men often went for intimacy in the dark. But there in the mist, the quiet rustle of leaves, the Doodler did the unthinkable. Just like before, he struck quickly, stabbing Joseph multiple times before leaving his body discarded in the park, a signature sketch tucked in his pocket. The killer had grown bolder. There was no sign of him slowing down. The city was on edge, but no one knew who to look for. The Doodler blended into the crowd. His face was among many, and yet his action will leave unthinkable marks on the city. Then came Klaus Christman, a 31-year-old man who was found dead in July of 1974. The attack of Klaus was strikingly similar to the previous ones, but this time the Doodler action seemed more deliberate and methodical. He didn't just kill. He seemed to be testing his limits, trying to push the boundaries of violence. Christman's throat was slashed in 3 different places. He was stabbed at least 15 times. Christman had a wife and 2 children. He had been staying with his friends, Mr. and Mrs. Broker Williams, and had been in the city just 3 months. His body was returned to Germany for his burial. In May of 1975, the next victim, Frederick Kaplan, would meet the same fate. Frederick's body was discovered at Ocean Beach, his life stuffed out like the others. The killer ritual never changed. He was calculated and seemed unstoppable. With other murders, his arrogance grew. He began to feel untouchable, like a ghost moving in and out of the city unnoticed.
The Doodler's reign of terror ended with one final victim, Harold Goldberg, the oldest among them at 66. It was June the 4th, 1975, when a lone hiker wandering through the Lincoln Park golf course in San Francisco stumbled upon a gruesome sight just 10 yards off the trail. There in a bush lay a man, his throat slashed, his pants unzipped, and his body left to decay under the open sky. By the time the authorities arrived, death had already taken its toll. Maggots and fly larvae had claimed his face, a grim testament to the 2 weeks he had been left undiscovered. The San Francisco Chronicle would later confirm the chilling details. But there was more to Goldberg's story. Even before the Doodler found him, death had already been creeping in. His body was failing him. his liver ravaged by portal cirrhosis. In the end, it was not illness that took him, but a blade of a killer who vanished into the night. 5 months had passed when the San Francisco Police Department finally released a composite sketch of the suspect. The man, they said, was a familiar face in the bars of restaurants of the Upper Market and Castro neighborhoods. He was young, somewhere between 19 and 22, tall and slim, always donning a Navy-style watch cap. But it wasn't just his appearance that intrigued investigators. They believed he was quiet, serious, and well-educated, possibly even from an upper-middle-class background. He had once told a witness he was studying commercial art, leading police to suspect he might be an art student. Yet no one had ever seen his sketches, and the press never published them. More disturbingly, police suspected he had a history of mental struggles, specifically ones tied to sex. Reports at the time vaguely described him as having sexual identification problems and receiving outpatient psychiatric care. Then there were the words. He allegedly spoke to his victims, a chilling refrain. "All you guys are alike," a phrase dripping with resentment directed at the men he pursued. Despite the growing body of evidence, witnesses were reluctant to cooperate. The stigma of the time kept many silent. "My feeling is they don't want to be exposed as homosexuals," Inspector Rotia Guilford later remarked. The fear was real, and in the absence of an arrest, rumors spread. One such story came from Charles Lee Morris, the late owner of the Sentinel. He told the Chronicle of a man in Los Angeles who had narrowly escaped an encounter with the suspected killer. The man had been on the verge of taking a young black man, one who bore a striking resemblance to the composite sketch, back to bed when something changed his mind. A knife had slipped from a young man's coat. It was enough to make him reconsider. There were also those who had survived. One was a European diplomat stationed in the U.S. who had met the suspect late one night in an upper market restaurant. Over a midnight snack, the young man asked if he had any cocaine. The two went back to the diplomat's apartment, but what happened next wasn't what the older man had expected. The suspect attacked him, stabbing him 6 times. He survived, but when questioned, the diplomat denied having any sexual relations with the suspect. Years later, in 2011, an attempt to obtain diplomatic records through a Freedom of Information Act request yielded nothing. Another survivor was a well-known entertainer, someone, according to the police, of national fame. But their identity remained a mystery, never leaking into the gay press. The third was described as a well-known San Francisco figure. He had fled the city and refused to answer letters or phone calls. For those who followed the case, the identity of the nationally known figure became one of its enduring mysteries. Randall Alfred, the Sentinel's news editor at the time, speculated. Was it Johnny Ray? Rock Hudson? Richard Chamberlain? It was, after all, an era when a quick flight from Los Angeles to San Francisco cost next to nothing. One of the three, only Chamberlain is still alive. Meanwhile, police urge anyone who had survived an attack to come forward. I'd sure like to talk with anybody who's been attacked. Inspector Frank McCoy told the Sentinel, emphasizing that all the information would be kept confidential. But the silence remained, and so did the mystery. A suspect named Ralph, an acquaintance of one of the victims, was arrested. The case seemed to be cracking open, but with no physical evidence, the suspect was released. The trail went cold. Years passed and the city's focus moved on, but the Doodler's crimes remained locked in a vault of unsolved mysteries. Then, in 2018, the San Francisco Police Department reopened the case. New forensic technology and fresh leads prompted them to take another shot. A new composite sketch of the killers was released, showing what he might look like now. Older, more weathered. The hope was that someone would recognize the man in the sketch, that someone would come forward. But still, the Doodler remained a ghost, unseen, unknown, and undeterred. Though the Doodler's identity remained a mystery, his victims are not forgotten. Their names live as part of San Francisco's dark history, a chilling reminder of the violence faced by the LGBTQ plus community at the time. Their lives, their stories, their legacy, it's all part of a deeper conversation about how fear, silence, and discrimination allowed a killer to walk free. As time passes, the Doodler's shadows still lingers. The city that once danced in the light of the Castro District's neon signs now dances in the light of progress. But the fog that shrouded those dark nights in 1974 through 1975 remains. And the Doodler? Well, he's still out there, waiting, hidden in the shadows. Before we end this case, let's sit back and remember the victims. The first victim, Gerald Kavanaugh, was a 49-year-old man known for his warmth, his laughter, and his welcoming presence in the Castro. Gerald was more than a regular at the local bars. He was a friend to many, always ready with a joke or a listening ear. Once, one cold evening, he met a young man, a stranger who seemed harmless and even intriguing. Gerald, ever the sociable soul, agreed to go with him. They walked to a quiet spot near the beach, but when the man offered to sketch Gerald as if it were an innocent exchange, but in that moment, Gerald's life was taken in a brutal act of violence. He fought back, but the Doodler was relentless, stabbing him over 20 times. When his body was found, the only thing left behind was a sketch, capturing the likeness in a chilling detail. Gerald's life had been stolen, but his spirit was remembered by those who loved him. Joseph Stephen, a 27-year-old man, was another victim whose life was cruelly cut short. Joseph was the kind of person who brightened a room with his energy. He was an artist, someone who shared his soul through his creative work and loved to engage with the community. He was a familiar face in the Castro, known for his easy smile and compassionate nature. Like Gerald, Joseph crossed paths with the Doodler on a night out. The two struck up a conversation, and Joseph, trusting and full of life, agreed to go to a nearby park. There, the Doodler attacked. Joseph's life was taken, and once again, the killer left behind his signature, a sketch of the victim, a haunting memento of a life ended too soon. Claus Chrisman, 31, was another soul whose life was stolen in the same brutal fashion. Claus was a free spirit, an artist who had come to San Francisco seeking new beginnings. He was open-hearted and passionate, living each day with the hope of creating a better world. Claus had dreams of art, of love, and of the world where people could be themselves without fear. But his dreams were shattered in a secluded spot, where the Doodler took his life with the same methodical violence. When his body was discovered, the details were chilling familiar. No witnesses, no clear motive, only the devastating loss of a man who had fought, who had so much left to give. Then there was Fred Capin, another victim whose story was cut short. Frederick, like the others, had a presence that drew people in. He was known for his intelligence and his ability to make others laugh. Frederick had found love in Castro, and though he had faced challenges, he remained hopeful. His death, like the others, was sudden and cruel, leaving his friends and family in deep mourning. Frederick's legacy lives on in the hearts of those who knew him. He was taken, but he was also cherished. These men, Gerald, Joseph, Claus, Frederick, were more than just victims. They were sons, brothers, friends, lovers. And they had hopes and dreams, plans and connections with those who loved them. Their lives weren't just lost in a moment of violence. They were erased by a killer who, for reasons still unknown, chose to strike down those who had the courage to live authentically in a world that wasn't always kind to them. Each of these men had a story to tell, a laugh to share, and love to give. but the world never got to see their potential fulfilled. But it's not just the killer's identity that has left a lasting shadow on San Francisco. It's the silence of the survivors. Those who narrowly escaped the Doodler's grasp never spoke out. Their voices silenced by fear. In a time when being outed as gay could lead to violence, rejection, and worse, many choose to remain silent. Their experiences hidden. The Doodler's reign of terror continued, uttered by the quiet fear that surrounded his victims. The police investigation into the killings was thorough, but as the years passed, the trail grew cold. The Doodler's description, a young man, like in his 20s, with artistic skills, offered little to go on. Despite multiple attempts, including a few false leads, the killer remained elusive. And with each passing year, the memories of the victims faded further into the fog. In the decades since, the case was reopened, with new forensic methods offering a glimmer of hope that the killer might finally be unmasked. Yet, even with the release of a new composite sketch, the Doodler remains a ghost. His name is still unknown. His actions still haunt the city. Today, the Castro District has evolved, and the LGBTQ+ community has fought long and hard for acceptance and rights. The fog still rolls in, but it no longer carries the same weight of fear. However, the legacy of those lost to the Doodler lingers. Gerald, Joseph, Claus, and Frederick were all taken in an instant, but their lives and memories are not forgotten. They live on in the hearts of those who knew them, in the stories shared by those who remembered their laughter, their kindness, their love. Though their lives were stolen too soon, they are not just victims of a senseless killer. They were individuals with families, dreams, and aspirations. Men who deserve to be remembered and cherished. The case may remain unsolved, but their stories, their humanity, and their spirits live on, keeping the memory of their lives alive, even in the fog. This is the case of the Doodler's murders. Now let's get into some theories.
Theories.
Let's get into some theories. Let's get into some theories. Everyone is a suspect until proven guilty. Let's get into some theories. Lesbian Detectives.
What type of thoughts you thinking? What theories running through your mind? I'm thinking all types of suspicion, uncover the truth, what we can find. Witness say they saw somebody creeping out the back door. What you think they did it for? That's so crazy, I'm not sure. They found a car, where could she be? Here go another puzzle piece. Researching through your history, it's plenty unsolved mysteries. Everyone is a suspect until proven guilty. Let's get into some theories, yeah.
Let's get into some theories. Let's get into some theories. Everyone is a suspect until proven guilty. Let's get into some theories. Lesbian Detectives.
This case is a doozy. It's hard to figure out because most of our cases, like, we could pinpoint, like, okay, this might be the person. They might know the person, but this is a serial killer. So it's different. I know, like, we don't have the knowledge and stuff like that to profile, but I'm going to try my best. When I thought about it, I was like, when he said that line, you all are the same. I wonder if he was a straight man and he did not like gay men, or he was a straight man, like a bi-curious man. Like, okay, I think I might be gay, but I want to try it, but he could never like get there, you know?
Yeah.
Or the final one is he was gay and he was very religious and he did not want to be gay. And when he got there, you know, started making out with these guys and he got kind of turned on, he did not like it. So when he said that line, y'all all the same, that mean y'all all like evil. Like I have this evil inside me and I need to get it out.
Right.
So that's the hardest part about that. And of course, it was in the 70s too, so it's not as accepting as it is now.
Right.
I mean, is it really accepted now? Because we still have a lot of stuff that we need to work through with the community. But with this one, I look at which option I would say. I feel like it was probably, it's kind of hard because how they all describe him, he was very charming. He know how to flirt. He was always around. I feel like the sad thing about it, a lot of people might know who he was. Because a lot of the survivors, a lot of people say they might have saw him walking around or being, involved. So I feel like he might was a part. Like, I feel like a lot of people knew who he was.
Right.
And it's sad to say that you go against the LGBT community. Back in the day, they wasn't going to speak.
Right.
They didn't think, like, a lot of them, let's be honest, a lot of them probably was in the closet, or they did not want their family to, probably had a wife and kids at home, like one of our victims was. He had a wife and kid. But he was out there in gay clubs and interacting with gay men and having gay relationships. It's just hard. I feel like this is hard because you have to profile. And of course, we don't have the knowledge like a profile detective will, but we're going to try our best.
Right.
And like the creepiest part is that he drew them. And I wonder, like, when the police saw it, like, what, like, I don't know. I just think it's shocking. Like, he killed them and then he left the drawing with them.
I wonder if he drew them before he killed them or after.
I think he just did like a little, because it's hard to say, because when I was looking up the case, some outlets said that he drew them before, or some said he drew them after, because he would kind of do that like as a flirtation, like, hey, you look beautiful or handsome, let me draw you, as a flirt. I wonder which picture did he use, the ones that he drew them in a bar or the one he drew of their deceased body.
I feel like maybe in the beginning that's how he would lure them, but the community's so small and kind of close-knit that I would believe that word spread quickly. I wonder how big his notepad was or his sketch pad, because not everybody walks around with a sketch pad and some drawing pencils.
I mean, you think about it, he would be obvious to the community.
Right.
Because he probably used that flirtation skill on a couple of guys.
But other people knew about it eventually. So I would say if I see somebody with a sketch pad or even talks about drawing me, I would be on alert. I'd be like, hey, that's him,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how word didn't spread as quickly or how people didn't know about him. How was he getting them? How was he enticing them? Of course, I know he was charming, but if people knew about him, how was he doing it? Unless he was luring them and then unaliving them and then possibly drawing them.
I think it seemed like he was drawing them. He like, oh, let me get a little drawing of you because you're so beautiful and handsome. Then he did that. And then I feel like after he unalived them, he probably drew their dead body. I feel like that's sick a little bit, but it seemed that that's what happened.
But he would always leave the drawing behind.
He would leave, but we don't know what the drawing was. The police never released it. You always knew that he left a drawing, but I would say of the victim, but they never said of how the victim was. That's the crazy thing about it. It seemed like he was young and very educated, very talented, because for him to draw, that's amazing talent, because I cannot draw.
Right.
It's just, I'm thinking a lot of the older men that he did go for, do you think he was, well, only one that he really like went for super older, and one was like close to, like, we don't know his age, but like close to early 20s. Do you think he was molested as a child by a man?
That kind of makes sense. Y'all are all the same. Y'all want the same thing from me. But it's almost like that's what you were doing. Like that was the setup. That was the idea.
Yeah, but he probably got like, when that step happened, he was like, okay, like, no. Like, what if he did like one of them, like trying to flirt and like hang out, but he didn't want to take it that far?
Well, maybe this was his way of like correcting the world or correcting or doing his good deed.
Because an older man going for a younger man?
No, for a man on man. Or that's probably what he believed. Like, okay, the more I take out, the world is a better place. Not knowing that it was all out of love and not some type of harm.
I wonder, did he, I mean, of course, I feel like he stopped because like we didn't see no more, the police would have known it was him. But I wonder why he stopped. That's the biggest thing. Also, I wonder, did he ever, because for him just to stop like that, Like, that's the craziest thing about it. Like, why did he stop in that? Because usually serial killers, they keep going. They usually stop because they're getting married, but they kind of would pick it back up a little bit, you know? But for him just to stop.
I think he was getting too much heat. And he had a couple survivors
Mm-hmm.
that could profile him. They were scared, but nothing is guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why they haven't came out.
That's a good point, because I was going to bring that up. Like, it's okay to come out. But we don't know. They probably got married to a woman, had kids, and they didn't want their kids or their family to know, like, hey, this is what happened to me as a child. And people say that it's harder for a man to come out because they're scared of, like, oh, you weak. You're not a man. You let this person did this to you. But let me tell you something, guys. It's okay. It's okay to use your voice. I know, like, oh, it's back in the 70s. All that stuff happened. But come out now. Even like one person might be like a big celebrity.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Because if he came out, his voice and so many other men will come out behind him and speak their truth.
I believe he thought that he was doing the right thing by taking out gay men. Of course, it was frowned upon. And his idea was that it was a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that he thought it was a good deed that he was doing. He said, y'all are all the same. So he saw them as evil, as wicked.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about perception, you know? His family probably didn't agree, or his loved ones. It was a different time back then. I believe that he did have some type of curiosity about that, because why would you be so fixated on a certain group if they weren't on your mind all the time? It's almost like he couldn't escape it. And this was his form of escape. I really want to know the drawings too. Did something else happen? Did he, I don't know if he kissed them, but they would have had his DNA, or if they went the whole way. Like, I don't know all of that. And they haven't released any of that information. So it's kind of hard to go by, but I do encourage the victims to use their voice and give the family and the victims the justice that they deserve. I know it's been a long time, but even knowing who did this will bring them some sort of closure.
And also, my question is, do you think that he really stopped? Like, why do I have a couple theories of why he stopped? One, as you said, like, it was too, like, the heat was just getting strong. He like, you know what, I need to chill out. Or he got married and they moved away. Or what if, like, the people found out who he was and just killed him? I'm like, okay, bye.
Right. That was another theory of mine. They probably ganged up, figured out who it was, but they're not going to out themselves. So they probably did get rid of him.
Because, I mean, if he's going around, I feel like detective how he flirted, a lot of guys were picked up on, like, do you remember? I feel like the community probably like, okay, the cops ain't doing nothing about it. It's probably us. We need to stand up for each other, because they could like, okay, don't go out with him, but a lot of guys won't know that. You know?
Yeah.
Because he was going to that bar. The bartender might saw something. The owner might know something. Think about it.
That's probably why the victims didn't say anything, because they had already kind of discussed it within like their own group of people that they trusted. And then those people took matters into their own hands. It was a different time back then. So that makes a lot of sense. I don't think he would just stop even if he got married.
Right. Because he would kept doing it.
And that's why the victims are not coming out, because for them, like, justice has already been served.
I mean, that's a theory that I never, well, I just thought about just now.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking, like, what if the community was like, okay, let's take things in our own hands? Because how he flirted is so, like, obvious. They gonna see, like, as you said, a sketch pad and a pencil. They gonna know this guy that's walking around. He went to that bar and picked up those victims. That was like his hunting ground. So
and it was in Castro. It was at a certain spot.
A certain bar he go to, and he picked them up. So the owner might know something. The bartender might know something. People that's around are like, man, because I know, let's be honest, people like to gossip. Cheeseman. People like cheeseman. And they probably was like, hey, call him Bailey. Let's give him a name. They probably like, hey, you know, Bailey's always have that sketch patch around. Like, do you think it's Bailey? Do you think Bailey could be the person?
like you said, the people from the club or whatever, they were like, hey, I saw this person with XYZ
Mm-hmm.
before they were unalived. And then people just start putting two and two together. And there is one common denominator, and it's going to be the perpetrator.
Or the sketch patch. Because they're going to say, hey, he always carrying around, he's always drawing. They going to recognize, and they're going to like, oh, I saw him, wasn't it? Because that's why I feel like that community was a tight-knit community. It was a small community. They had to know everybody. He stood out. To me, I feel like they knew who it possibly was. Because when I was reading the information, he got bolder and bolder. How he was killing them was vicious. He wouldn't stop. He would not stop. He probably would stop when the police got him. But let's be honest, did the police really give it their all back? Come on now.
Not at that time, no.
Probably not in this time either, let's be honest. So, guys, that is our case. I like this case, my bad. This is our case. Please tell us your theories. Comment down below and tell us what you believe. Don't forget, we are on all podcast platforms. Give us that 5-star rating. Hit that notification bell so you know when our next episode will come out. And also, subscribe. Like, come on, guys, subscribe. Be like a part of the detectives teams. I cannot wait for you guys to hear our next case. And this is Lesbian Detective. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And do not forget, everybody's a suspect
until proven innocent.
Bye.
Lesbian Detectives. Unsolved cases. She's still missing. Yeah, they haven't found her yet. Well, let's talk about it.
They say he vanished without a trace. Could it be a psychotic break? Or a tragic accident? Police don't know where the body went. Unsolved murders, body still missing. That's unheard. Where's the witness? Lesbian detectives, what's going on? City on high alert, this out the norm. He did what, the who? Man, that ain't real, these crimes ain't true. Then come uncover these theories with us. We live right now, tuning in is a must.
Lesbian Detectives. We about to start the show, so get your popcorn ready to go. Pay attention to the message I present to you, the Lesbian Detectives.